Hey guys, tonight we're mending fishing nets on the Ceredigion coast. Does that sound riveting? Let's say it's less pirates of the Caribbean and more pensioners of the Pebble Beach. Your hands ache already. That's the ASMR of manual labor, baby. At least 3 viewers just realized they're allergic to seaweed. Check those snacks. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time below. Bangkok at 2 a.m. crew. I see you surviving on caffeine and poor life choices. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Ceredigion's cliffs loom behind you like disapproving in-laws. Waves hiss against shale, nature's white noise machine, stuck on relentless. You kneel where 13 generations of fishers darned nets and probably complained about their knees. The horizon bleeds amber, a celestial orange peel pressed against twilight's teeth. Your thumbnail finds the first knot, a gnarled fist of hemp and hubris. Historians still argue whether medieval Welsh sailors used nets or curses to catch herring. Modern divers found a 19th century ghost net here. Crustaceans had turned its fibers into condos. That salty breeze, 70% Irish sea microdroplets, 30% ancient fish regrets. Twine bites your palm, calluses meet their soggy nemesis. Every tug whispers maritime insurance rates. You think about Vikings raiding this coast. Did they stop to fix their nets too? Sorry, Bjorn. Pillage later. This sail's got a loose thread. The needle feels wrong, like trying to write with a frozen shrimp. Legends say a 1923 poet died here trying to weave moonlight into nets. His final words, the mackerels, they're just metaphors. You half expect his ghost to critique your technique. Amateurish tension on that sheet bend. He'd sneer, floating through cod liver oil vapors. The net resists like a teenager asked to clean their room. You channel generations of stubborn Welsh grandmas, wrinkled hands that outlasted wars and bad weather. One frayed strand becomes 17 problems. Fiber optic cables were simpler, and those confuse entire nations. Tide pool smells hit rotten kelp and existential doubt. Your wrists twist the fisherman's knot from primary 3 crafts class. Thanks, Mrs. Griffiths. Waxed thread glints like a pirate's gold tooth as you stab through the mesh. Fun fact, Cardigan Bay's fishing crews once used diluted Guinness to preserve nets. Modern science says it's nonsense. But when has that stopped tradition? The real question, did they drink the leftovers? Heritage gets messy after the 3rd pint. Dolphin cries pierce the gloaming. Their clicks map the bay better than your GPS. You make a mental note to Google. Can dolphins detect sarcasm later? The needle slips. Now your thumb bleeds the same iron-rich saltwater as the bay. Memories surface like bloated driftwood. That summer you tried crocheting a hammock. It became a spider's airbnb. This net won't end up as crustacean real estate, you swear into the wind. The sea answers with a wave that slaps rocks like a bored drummer. 10 minutes in, you fixed 6 inches and questioned 15 life choices. Colonial empires rose faster than this repair job. That's craftsmanship, baby. History measured in half-knots and swearing. The moon hoists itself up, a bloated pearl diver breaching the surface. Your shadow becomes a 12-limbed sea monster on the beach. Nearby, a crab side-eyes your progress. Judgment comes easy when you've got pincers. Cold nips your ears. Your 90% sure hypothermia isn't cozy. But hey, shivering burns calories, and disappointment fuels poets. Win-win. The net starts cooperating, or maybe you're just hallucinating from salt inhalation. Oilskin gloves hang useless in your pocket. Real fishers feel the twine's truth. Each loop tightens into something resembling competence. You hum a sea shanty that's 70% curse words, the educational ones. Obviously, dawn's still hours away, but your eyelids already debate retirement. The waves keep chanting ancient, tireless, smug. You spit sand and stubbornness, the Welsh coast's holy water. This net will hold or become tomorrow's problem. Circle of life, etc. Bioluminescence flares offshore, microscopic rebellions against the dark. Your needle follows their glow, stitching phosphorescence into the weave. The sea sighs, a grudging compliment from a salty old Tudor. Twilight deepens, your needle pricks a thumb. No blood, just saltwater rash blooming beneath fingerprints. The olden nets remember things. Every fray whispers in hemp dialect. Experts think Welsh herring fleets once fed half of medieval Europe. Dried silver mountains shipped as far as Byzantium. You pull a green thread, centuries-old lichen pigments staining your cuticles. Ghost nets never die. Fishermen swore drowned crews wove their aches into the strands. Your thumbnail finds a knot from 89, or is it 1689? Time frays here like undone rigging. A herring scale winks at you, tiny disco ball stuck in the mesh. Historians still argue whether nets held Viking longships together. After sails ripped, rope might been more vital than oak. You snort. Should tell that to your blistered palms. The needle bites again. Its eye flashes like a dying star. Someone once claimed nets could trap ghosts better than fish. Said the dead get tangled in memories of breath. You tug a shroud worm's nest free. Its calcified loops crumble into sand. Midnight oil lamps, if this were ancient Phoenicia, would gleam in turtle shells. But your lantern's led cold modern eye judging your pace. 17 diamonds glint in the net's rhombus gaps. No, just Venus reflecting on barnacle juice. The tricks in the twist. 3 counterclockwise loops before the final hitch. Your hands remember what your mind fogged over. Muscle arithmetic older than abacuses. Wind sneaks a laugh through the nets, mocking your skipped dinner. Stomach growls harmonize with buoy bells. You pat the hemp. Hush now, we're both hungry. 27 years back, a storm stranded French nuns on this beach. Their letters described nets, weeping with cod voices. But that's just tied in the rigging, probably. The needle slips, you stab darkness instead of twine. A bioluminescent jellyfish pulses below, nature's screen saver keeping you company. Your granddad swore nets, mended under new moons, caught philosophers' fish, ones that answered questions in bubbles. You whisper to the next knot, why do we fix what'll break again? Waves smack a sleepy retort against the hulls. Dawn's still hours off, the net's halfway to whole. You spit on a stubborn splice, like sailors did before remembering germex in your pocket. Tradition meets puerile, progress smells clinical. 3 porpoises breach offshore, their shadows leap through the mesh. For a breath, the net becomes a zoetrope of vanished shapes. Gwen's first catch, Tom's missing dinghy, your 8th birthday. Then the sea claims the vision, as it always does. Fingers cramp around the marlinspike, should worn gloves, but you need the truth of hemp grain. Every fisherman's palm tells the same lie, this hurts the last. The net sighs, accepting another suture. Out here repairs a religion without commandments, just blisters and dogfish. Your needle arcs again, stitching now to the rhythm of forgotten arguments. Did Neolithic weavers laugh as they knotted? Did Roman nets envy Greek ones? The tide doesn't care, it just licks your boots. A lone cormorant watches, black silhouette judging your knots. Back in my day, it mutters in seabird cant. You flick a mussel shell at it, missing by miles. The net shivers, laughing too. This late, even the gulls have stopped lying about dawn's arrival. Your last splice holds maybe. Tomorrow's catch will verdict the effort. For now, salt crisps on your lips. Sleeps a rumor downshore. You twist hemp into shadows and wait. Moonlight bleeds through the clouds. Your fingers twitch without permission. Calluses find their grooves. The needle's dance predates your birth. Stars prick holes in the sky. Their light drips into the net's voids. You've read Roman texts praising Iberian nets, tight weaves that could hold 1,000 mullet. Wonder if legionaries blistered like this under Mediterranean suns. The twine resists, then relents, as if acknowledging your lineage. Somewhere a seal barks, its laugh echoes the creak of your wrist. A fishbone fragment stabs your palm, payback for some long-dead hake's bad day. Rumor says Breton wives spat in knots to curse rivals' catches. You chuckle your own spits reserved for sealing splices. The needle zigzags, a drunkard's path through linen. Moonlight waxes your shadow, becomes a puppet, worked by invisible tides. Historians still argue whether Phoenicians traded nets, or just the secrets to knotting them. You're voting for secrets, easier to smuggle than a 3-ton sen. Your left thumb recalls the motions. It leads while your brain naps. Muscle memories witchcraft, passed through generations, via blisters and bent needles. That guy on Reddit claimed repetitive labor rewrites DNA. Maybe he wasn't totally unhinged. The net yawns wider, a gap-toothed grin begging for closure. You feed it fresh hemp, sacrificial threads, to postpone entropy's feast. 17 stitches down, 34 to go. Math feels different here. Subtraction by moon phase, division via tide charts, a shooting star cartwheels. You instinctively make a wish for tighter knots. Should have aimed for elbow grease instead. Waves slap the beach in iambs, Shakespearean insults for amateurs. Your grandmother's voice surfaces, darn like the devil's watching. She'd have loved these LEDs, fiendish glow, and no whale oil stink. The needle nicks a fingernail, close enough to Satan's approval. Barnacles crunch underfoot, nature's poker chips from last century's shipwreck. Archaeologists found a Norse longhouse upshore, stone weights still clad in wrought netting. You hum a TV theme song, the one about crab fishermen. Rhythm syncs with your looping, 3 beats per hitch. An eel's tail flicks nearby, living semaphore you can't decipher. The net tightens, or maybe the horizon buckles. Out here, difference is semantics served with a side of brine. That documentary said Alexander's soldiers used nets to scale cliffs. Imagine warfare via macrame. Your own siege weapons a marlinspike, bent from prying open stubborn realities. Something glows below, not bioluminescence, but a Coke bottle rolling in the surf. Progress's debris meets timeless craft. You almost salute the irony. The needle jabs, thread quivers, like a compass needle. North's irrelevant when the whole world smells of kelp. Your knuckles crack a Morse code message, probably send coffee or oblivion. The net mocks with its sen holes exist to be filled, not mourned. 18th century tax records show Cardiff fined men for mending nets on Sundays. What would they make of your midnight heresy? The tide inches closer, devout as any cathedral congregation. You offer another knot sermon in twisted flax. Dawns a rumor told by anxious gulls, your fingers slow, the rhythm unwinding like a spent winch. The last splice holds the darkness together temporarily. Stars blink out, retreating from the responsibility of light. You flex hands that aren't entirely yours, any more artifacts of 1,000 such nights. Somewhere, past the jetty, a fish leaps through liquid moonlight. The net sighs, dreaming of open water and the snap of struggles to come. Twine bites your palm, each twist pulls taut. Worries fray like old threads, drifting out with the receding tide. Your breath hitches, then deepens, falling into the net's rhythm. They taught you sailors knots in primary school, how Columbus's crew secured sails with bowlines mid-storm. Doubt he mentioned how mindless repetition becomes prayer. A crab scuttles through your shadow, its sideways walk mirroring the needle's jab and pull. Your thumbs remember what your brain forgot, knots older than English. 10th century fishermen believed tangled nets housed grumpy water sprites. They'd leave beer in the sand to appease them. You squint at your thermos. Cold tea's a poor libation, but the gesture counts. The hemp resists, then softens, a reluctant dance partner. Historians still bicker whether Celtic knots inspired early nautical hitches or vice versa. You side with the drunks who claimed both came from barley-fueled dreams. A wave licks your boots, salty critique of your technique. 3 chords twist, a braid that outlives empires. Dutch traders used similar weaves for herring nets, their golden age stitched in mackerel scales. Your pinky twinges time's invoice for borrowed muscle memory. The needle ducks under a frayed strand, ninja avoiding detection. Success tastes like linen and necessity. 3 gulls bicker over a crab carcass. Reality TV played at 2x speed. You hum along, their squawks sync with your looping. Anon, 1674, wrote that net mending cures melancholic humors better than leeches, worse than gin. Your laughter startles a sandpiper. It flees carrying your last coherent thought. Knots multiply, siblings separated at birth. Your fingers aren't fingers anymore, just tools worn smooth by purpose. That viral tweet claimed knitting lowers cortisol, but nets eat stress for breakfast. You gifted another tangle sacrificial offering to the gods of busy hands. Midnight chill nips your wrists, October's signature move. Tudor laws find anyone using fishing knots to mend clothing. Apparently, it confused the trade spirits. You glance at your patched jacket. Heresy never felt so practical. The needle approves, stitching faster. A knot unravels, catastrophe in miniature. You rework it twice as tight, thrice as stubborn. Otters use kelp threads to anchor while sleeping, smart bastards. Wish someone would tether you against life's riptides. The moon winks, unhelpful as ever. Your spine creaks, a unoiled winch protesting its misuse. The net yawns wider, hungry for more repairs. 17th century nuns darned sails between prayers, cloth and salvation woven together. You mutter a half-remembered hymn. The sea shushes you like a forgetful child. Ropes darken with damp, fiber becoming flesh. Each completed knot loosens something behind your ribs. Archaeologists found Bronze Age nets preserved in peat, their knots identical to yours. The past tugs, insistent as the tide claiming sand. Dawns a smudge on oilskins. You tie the final hitch, a flourish worthy of Bessie's saloon piano. The net groans, stretching like a cat in sunlight. Waves whisper secrets you'll never decode. Their breath still syncs with yours. The mist thickens, lichen crawling across your elbows. Ghost ships don't rush. Their crews work centuries deep over time. You mimic their pace, needle pausing midair like a hesitant conductor's baton. 18th century records mention the Gwyllyn Marwa, a schooner that vanished mid-repair near Bardsey Island. Salvagers found its empty hull in 1923, sailcloth needles still embedded in half-mended canvas. Your twine hisses through a grommet, soundtrack for spectral colleagues. Old-timers swear fog carries the scent of their tar, pine resin, and crushed regrets. You sniff, smell nothing but kelp and your own rusty thermos. Maritime historians still argue whether the crew succumbed to spoiled rum rations or a mutiny over unpaid wages. Either way, their stitches remain. Pebbles chatter like disapproving ants as you splice a broken line. The net droops, saturated with mist and myth. Tudor sailors believed mending gear at night invited hauntings, but kept doing it anyway. Deadlines trump ghosts. Your thumbnail splits. A bead of blood fuses with damp hemp. Iron supplements, courtesy of the underworld's HR department. Something groans offshore, wood protesting its own decay. Could be a buoy. Could be the Gwylan Marwa's ribs flexing. You work a cobweb pattern, same zigzag medieval monks used to repair parchment maps. Their ink bled your twine holds. Progress. A wave unspools nearby, foam pooling like spilled lace. Fishermen once tossed silver coins into repair knots as bait for good luck. You pat your pockets, find lint and a fossilized cough drop. Close enough. The net suckles salt from the air. Plastic buoys, now barnacle brains. Thread snaps, time fractures. You reknot it, 3 swift twists. Athenian emperors gifted jeweled fishnets to mistresses, tangible metaphors about entanglement. Your version's less romantic, more blisters, fewer emeralds. Cold numbs your toes. Encore performance by November. Moonlight etches the bay's wrinkles. Each repaired mesh mirrors a star, if stars were made of gristle and hope. Archaeologists found Viking nets weighted with prayer beads. Your lead sinkers clink a secular hymn. The past isn't behind you. It's the knot currently unraveling in your left hand. Laughter skims the water, or maybe just razor bills squabbling. You surrender a tangled section, cut it free with your teeth. Sometimes repair requires amputation. A 1940s study claimed foghorn vibrations speed up knot tying by 19%. You're pretty sure that's bullshit. Dawn hesitates behind the horizon, coy co-host, waiting for its cue. Your needle gleams, dull metal, pretending to be lightning. Nets never finish. They just pause between battles. The Gwylan Marwa's crew knew that. You stuff your tools into salt-crusted pockets, leaving the last knot half done. Let the ghosts earn their keep. Your palms grate against hemp, each crease packed with salt and centuries of repair. The twine softens unexpectedly, not from olive oil or lanolin, but starlight seeping through calluses. 18th century whalers called these sky calluses, said they grew thicker during meteor showers. Your fingers move blind, tracing the net's wounds by braille. A cormorant cry pierces the bay, its echo splinters into 10 smaller echoes. Someone's kid probably lost a drone here last summer. You picture its rotors crusted with mussels. Historians still argue whether Celtic fishers used star charts to design nets, or just got lucky with knots. The Milky Way droops low tonight, a snarled sen waiting for clumsy gods to tug it free. Barnacles crunch underfoot, nature's popcorn. Your thumb finds a hole stretched wide as a yawn. Tudor menders would blamed marrow maids for such damage, hungry sea women with needle-sharp teeth. You blame modern trawlers. The needle bites twice as spiteful in the chill. Something glints in the mess, a shard of Roman glass turned sea milk opaque. Be ashamed to toss it. You weave the fragment into the repair. Let the net remember beautiful trash. Victorian naturalists claimed cormorants hum Wagner during nesting season. The bird overhead stays suspiciously quiet. Its shadow falls across your wrist, a living stencil. Thread frays, you twist it tighter. 9th century monks used nettle fibers for repairs, itching for sainthood. Your polyester blend lacks divinity, but holds fast. Cold numbs your lips, makes spit freeze mid-curse. Fog slithers ashore wearing rain's disguise. A distant buoy clangs, Churchillian accent shouting keep calm and mend on. Salt crust glues your eyelashes shut. You blink through it, spotting Jupiter tangled in the mesh. Sailors once thought planets were fish too wise to bite, celestial tuna mocking their hooks. Your needle flicks, severing the illusion. Pebbles shift, a crab drags its airman past your boot. The net bucks in your grip, alive with brine and impatience. Someone in the 1930s patented glow-in-the-dark twine for melancholic fishermen. You've got moonlight instead, cheaper and less prone to existential leaks. The cormorant dives, a black bolt skewering waves. Its victory cry tastes like overstepped tea. You envy the simplicity, hunger, hunt, swallow. Mending's never done, just passed between hands like a cursed heirloom. That Roman glass winks, green as envy. Foghorn blares, a didgeridoo cover of a trash compactor. Your spine answers with its own creaks. 17th century, Amsterdam paid fishermen extra for nets mended during new moons. You work pro bono, paid in gull screams and phantom ship groans. A wave delivers seaweed, slimy pamphlet about ocean conservation. You toss it back unsigned. Your stitches tighten, each loop a miniaturized Gordian knot. Alexander would have hated this job, too much sitting, not enough conquering. Dawns a rumor behind Cardigan Bay, muted as a librarian's sneeze. Thread ends dangle tiny nooses for wayward krill. The cormorant surfaces, empty-beaked. You nod, shared failure's the best handshake. Blood from split cuticles stains the twine rust and copper collaborating. Pirates believed such stains warded off krakens. Your hands argue otherwise. The bay's monsters clearly boredom. Starlight fades, spilling from your grip like dry sand. The net flexes, testimony in hemp and guesswork. You stand knees, popping the Internationale in Morse code. The Gwylan Marwa out there, somewhere, planking sighing your name. One final knot, half hitch over thief's regret. Tomorrow's catch will mock it. Tonight, the Milky Way rests in your pocket, warm as a stolen casino chip. The mended net hangs slack, its diamonds gaping like exhausted mouths. Waves nudge your shins, impatient for drama. You count repair jobs, 783 stitches since sundown. Medieval monks scored such tallies in birch bark ledgers. Proof labor mattered more than prayer. Your ledger's a constellation of blisters, each star throbbing in unison. A knot unravels, frayed ends hissing like wet fuse. You spit on the twine, sparks dead before it catches. 18th century smugglers cursed these shores, their caves still stink of brandy and cowardice. Footsteps crunch behind you, just pebbles settling under the tide's weight. Historians still argue whether weather-worn nets strengthened coastal communities or unraveled them with shared dread. Your knife trims stubborn fibers, blunt rebellion against perfection. Victorian sailors swore sleepwalking fishermen wove gold into their nets. Found none, just seaweed and gull spite. The sea breathes louder now, inked lungs expanding. You knot with both hands, pretending not to hear the future's teeth gnashing hemp. Moonlight paints the bay pewter, church bells drowned centuries ago toll in your wrists. A hermit crab evicts itself from a Coke can upgrades to Roman glass. You nod approval, gentrification's cleaner underwater. That Tudor marrow legend. Pure PR, even mythical maids avoid Welsh winters. Thread slips, your curse startles a barnacle choir. 15th century menders used cod blood as adhesive. You've got Icelandic band-aids and resignation. Waves deliver another whole, ovals stretched wide as hungers. The net groans, its arthritis audible. Cold numbs your nose, makes snot glitter like cheap rhinestones. You recall Venetian fishers mending with glass beads, defiance masquerading as decoration. Your hands choose pragmatism over flair. Salt crust cracks when you smile, face a dried-up riverbed. The buoy's clang morphs, Dorian Gray's portrait creaking in its attic. You mutter a limerick about mackerel rhymes, decompose faster than the fish. Blue-gray dawn licks the horizon's spine. Historians still argue there. A seal surfaces, judges your work with golf pro gravity. You toss a pebble, it arcs like a fleeing minnow. The net sags, half rebellion, half relief. Tudor mothers taught daughters to weave secrets into nets, said the sea kept better confidences than priests. Your needle snaps, steel casualty of a fisherman's pension plan. 8 legs skitter across your boot, spider claiming maritime rights. You flick it toward France. 14th century tax records list repaired nets as currency. 3 Mendied sens bought a sloop, ate a second wife. Wind flips your collar up, a clammy high five. The net's shadow stretches, dolly lobster claw pinching the beach. You step back, illusion shatters. Ovaler weavers called this the soul's hem moment, where craft mirrors conscience. Yours mirrors blisters. Last stitch, you tie it clockwise, against tradition. Waves applaud with foam mustaches. Someone's phone rings 50 yards out, Nokia jingle, surviving like a coelacanth. You pocket the glass shard, fee for services rendered. No net stays whole. Holes mutate into new verbs. You learned that watching Grandpa fix the same hole for 3 summers. Sees a comedian, he'd rasp. We're just slow laughers. Wet sand sucks at your boots, quicksand's shy cousin. Lights flicker in Aberporth, insomniacs or early bakers. The net sways, already forgetting your hands. Tomorrow's haul will strain its threads. Tonight, the waves murmur, good enough. You walk inland, salt crunching like communion wafers underfoot. Stars blink off one by one, bartenders closing the celestial pub. When hands reach fresh bandages, you'll pause, smell the hemp lingering under iodine, a child's plimsoll left by the tide. The cormorant returns dives where you stood. Its wing almost touches the repaired mesh. Almost counts. You kneel where the cormorant dove, sand imprinted with wing shadows too perfect to erase. A green shard winks in the mesh, sea glass kintsugi glowing where knots once failed. 16th century wives swore blue fragments warded off mermaid kidnappings. Still, you pocket a cerulean sliver. Your nail traces its edges, soap-smooth curve echoing a child's bedtime stone. Cold numbs your knees, the Atlantic's version of a timeout. You pluck seaweed from a hole, its slime clinging like half-hearted regret. Renaissance sailors patched nets with stolen altar cloths, holiness as insulation against drownings. Your needle skips, stabbing only air and dignity. A wave retreats, exposing barnacle-scabbed chains older than your grandparents' grudges. Medieval menders pressed sea glass into hemp-crude tally counters when lead ran short. You count 7 green, 3 blue, 1 clouded white, like a cataract. Historians still bicker whether Renaissance menders hid gold in their nets or just shameful tax dodges. Wind flips your hood, wet slap of a jilted lover's glove. The glass warms in your palm, 5 centuries of tides polishing someone's mistake. Tudor kids played chuckies with these, tossed them at sheep when boredom bit. You mimic the motion, watch your blue fragment plink into black water. 3 heartbeats pass before the sea spits it back, rejected apology. Your thumb finds a cracked stitch, victim of last Tuesday's bass swarm. 1940s POWs wove Red Cross thread into escape maps, fiber rebellion against barbed wire. This tear gets mercerized cotton and a silent fuck you to destiny. Salt crusts your lips, tastes like the rim of a margarita glass. Moonlight fractures on the mendied grid, a light bright version of the Milky Way. 18th century botanists claimed night mending caused lunar madness, hence fishermen's habit of marrying seagulls. You fake a vow to a herring gull, it squawks, unimpressed by your dowry of Cheez-It crumbs. A knot unravels, frayed ends quivering like lie detector needles. You zap it with a lighter, nylon stink, ruining the ambience. Victorian romantics wrote odes to fisherwives, luminous dedication. Bullshit. Dedications. What happens when the co-ops closed on Tuesdays? Dawn leaks over the bay, orange peel, rubbed too hard on slate. You stretch, vertebrae crackling like a Walkman eating cassette tape. The net shivers, still clinging to your knife's notch marks. 13-year-old, you'd call this art. 30-year-old, you calls it a tax write-off. Sand trickles from a whole miniature hourglass, mocking your progress. You jam the sea glass into the gap. Frankenstein's monster at low tide. Archaeologists found Phoenician glass in Breton nets. Proof Mediterranean swagger didn't survive Celtic winters. Your version wobbles. Kitsch chandelier in a trailer park wave. Footprints approach, just your own, flooded by the rising tide. Menai straight weavers sang to their nets, lyrics now lost to sheep-bitten manuscripts. You hum Radiohead close enough. The glass prism catches first light, throws emeralds on the piss-yellow dinghy. Child laughter echoes from the car park ghosts of the ice cream van's jingle. You spit on the net, saliva merges with sea sweat. 5 more minutes. 3, 1. Hands cramp when you stand, origami limbs creaking into blood flow. The net murmurs in Welsh, verbs you last heard at Grandpa's wake. You answer in blisters. Walking backward, you watch waves claim the mended web. Seaglass blinks farewell, or maybe it's just the sun's glare. That Tudor kid's Chucky stone, safe in your pocket. The net, already forgetting your name. Sand erases your path, one tide closer to someone else's shoreline. The bell buoy rocks. Its dull clang now syncs with your pulse. Fibers prickle under your palms, each strand humming with old squalls. 18th century Royal Navy riggers swore hemp remembered gales. They used storm-tempested ropes for flagship anchors. You test the theory, tugging a line, until your calluses burn like lit fuses. Rain starts sideways, needles stitching the bay's surface into gray corduroy. Your needle hesitates, caught in a snarl that hisses like wet fireworks. 19th century logbooks mention knot ghosts. Sailors believed tempests left imprints in tangled lines. You half expect the fibers to spit ozone to flinch at phantom thunder. A wave slaps the pebbles. Its retreat reveals a rusted sardine key. You pocket it absently, another relic for the jam jar shrine back home. Historians still argue whether Celtic menders encoded, whether warnings in knot patterns, or just hated untidy net ends. The debate dies as wind steals your breath, replaces it with brine. Your shanty gets ripped mid-verse, folk lyrics devolving into coughs. WWII net menders in Cornwall worked under tarps during Luftwaffe raids, mending by touch when blackouts hid moonlight. You mimic their blindness, shut eyes, and let thumbs read the twine's braille. Something crackles in the fibers, a static charge or ancestral grudge. 17th century widows burned nettle threads to purge storm echoes from nets. The ashes made terrible tea. You snap the knot loose, blame muscle memory instead of witchcraft. Lightning bleaches the horizon, a photo negative of midnight. The net stiffens, every rope suddenly taut as a 73 guitar string. You count Mississippis until thunder answers. 4 seconds means the storm's horn section is warming up. Rain plasters your hood, earthy scent of wet wool mixed with regret. That waterproof jacket from Decathlon lies as smoothly as a Tinder date's bio. You fumble a repair, a botched half hitch that get you fired on any trawler. 1920s Marseille fishermen used rhymed insults to shame clumsy menders, their diction sharp as filleting knives. A wave licks your ankles, shockingly warm, like blood from a split lip. The net jerks fishless, but thrashing against barnacled rocks. Cold War submariners heard similar sounds in hydrophones. They called it the ocean's tantrum. You double knot the mesh, add extra spit for luck. Your gloves split at the seams, faux leather flaps, mocking capitalist durability. A prism of light pierces the clouds, illuminates dozens of repaired gaps. Ottoman weavers wove horsehair into storm nets, believed stallion rage scared off squalls. Yours has Walmart polypropylene, less karma, more static cling. The buoy's bell flatlines, storm surge choking its throat. You anchor the net with a barnacle-crusted cinder block. Bounty mutineers used similar ballast when dumping their shame. Fibers creak, a nautical chorus of the damned tuning up. Lightning forks again, nature's middle finger aimed at the headland. Shivering unlocks memories. Age 8, watching Grandpa mend nets during Typhoon Frietta. His thumb bled onto the twine. He called it paying the tide tax. Your own blood stays guiltily internal, preserved like museum-quality cowardice. The storm pivots, waves suddenly organized as commuter traffic. You reef the net tighter, Victorian storm pleats designed to let chaos pass through. A soda can tumbles past, Coca-Cola logo faded into Rorschach ambiguity. 19th century beachcombers found Napoleon's champagne bottles here, postage stamps still salvageable. Your teeth chatter Morse code, mostly obscene suggestions to Poseidon. The last knot seals with a surgeon's final stitch, precision masking existential doubt. Fiber artists in Reykjavik knit replicas of fatal storm surges. Their gallery tags quote Pliny the Elder. You've done the opposite, tamed a gale into 12 square feet of mediocre craft. Dawn comes grudgingly, bruised sky yellowing like a forgotten banana. The net droops exhausted, but intact, smelling of wet dog and resilience. Waves retreat to gossip offshore. You're no longer interesting. One purple jellyfish pulses where your cinder block anchor sits. Translucent umbrella opened at a rainy bus stop. Sand grinds inside your boots. Impromptu exfoliant for the soul. That's the thing about storm repairs. You never know if you won or just delayed the inevitable. The buoy belches, half-hearted applause from a bored coliseum. You walk inland, praying the car heater works, half convinced the net's still humming behind you. Your needle hesitates mid-stitch, like it knows tomorrow's catch will shred this labor. 13th century menders in Haverfordwest wove horsetail fibers into nets, medieval Teflon against relentless wear. You're stuck with nylon twine from B&Q. Its warranty expired before Brexit. The net smells of diesel and dead muscles, a perfume called Eau de Desperation. Cold air numbs your lips, your muttered curses freeze into visible commas. Historians still argue whether Tudor fishermen cursed their nets for sport, or to scare off Selkies. Both seem plausible when your knuckles bleed onto synthetic mesh. A wave coughs up Victorian-era buttons. They gleam like pirate coins under your flashlight. You pocket one, depicting Queen Victoria's profile, her frown eroded into vague disappointment. Before marine plastic, scavengers hunted beach jet tokens, believed to ward off shipworms. Yours will join the jar full of wartime shrapnel and Lego pirates at home. Your gloves develop new holes, skin peeking through like impatient seedlings. 18th century Lundy Islanders soaked their mittens in cod liver oil, swore it made them stormproof. You'd settle for windproof, or at least less prone to spontaneous disintegration. Tide charts flutter against the rocks, paper edges dissolving into lunar lace. Mending becomes meditation, each loop a defiance of entropy's smirk. Archaeologists found Bronze Age nets preserved in Irish bogs, their repairs nearly identical to yours. 30 centuries later, humanity still fights frayed edges with stubborn hope. A seal barks offshore its voice like a creaking porch swing. You imagine it judging your knots, some maritime foreman clocking your shoddy craftsmanship. WWII codebreakers at Bletchley Park decrypted U-boat messages, yet couldn't untangle their own fishing nets during lunch breaks. The thought comforts you genius has limits. Your thumbnail splits, a crimson bloom on hemp fibers. Medieval Baltic weavers used menstrual blood to bless trawl lines, documented in a Vatican codex, denounced as heresy. You reach for the duct tape instead. Pragmatism over paganism tonight. Wind rifles through your coat, pockets inflated into grotesque sausages. A Portuguese proverb claims broken nets catch more regrets than fish. Yours brim with both, tangled in monofilament limbo. Moonlight glosses the bay, turning ripples into liquid mercury. Your needle flickers silver, a tiny exclamation mark punctuating the dark. 19th century, Breton widows burned their dead husbands' nets, smoke signals to guide drowned souls shoreward. You tie 3 knots extra tight, just in case symbolism holds weight. Dawn arrives like a half-hearted intern, pale streaks smudging the horizon. The net hangs slack, already forgetting your hours of coaxing. Every repair's a bet against time, and the house always wins. Sand grates between your teeth, breakfast grits seasoned with hubris. That's the fisherman's paradox, building what storms will break, mending what waves will fracture. You trudge uphill, carrying the quiet triumph of temporary things. The dark swallows your flashlight beam hole, then the sea answers in electric blue. Tiny sparks ignite beneath the surface, living constellations charting your needle's path. 3rd century Phoenician traders followed this glow, called it sea fire, to navigate moonless nights. You're less poetic, muttering free nightlight as algae clings to torn webbing. A wave hiccups neon, your hands become shadow puppets against the pulsating surf. 14th century Venetian alchemists bottled this light, sold vials as mermaid torch oil to love-struck nobles. You swipe wet fingers across the mesh, watch bioluminescence smear like cheap glitter. Historians still argue whether marine glow guided or lured ships onto rocks. Depended which crew member you asked. Probably. Needle pricks sting brighter tonight. Each drop hitches a ride on the blue current. You recall San Francisco's 2009 red tide. Tourists tweeted glowing waves as apocalyptic signs. Tonight's display feels quieter, nature's subtweet about human panic. The net sags under luminescent sludge, a jello mold left at a rave. Cold numbs your knees, you're kneeling in liquid electricity now. 18th century, Breton fishermen refused to repair nets during blooms, feared ensnaring ghost ships' lanterns. Their loss, you'll take haunted twine over another hour, squinting at nylon. A fish darts through the glow, its skeleton momentarily x-rayed by the light. Your needle slips, catches nothing but water and ancient photons. Marine biologists estimate 1 trillion organisms spark tonight, each flash saying here and gone in the same breath. You whisper here to the next stitch, a petty rebellion against oblivion. Salt crusts your lips, the taste of static and battery acid. 3 seals surface offshore, their whiskers trailing comet tails of phosphorescence. WWI submariners reported similar sights, logged them as enemy sonar tricks in panicked manifests. You log tonight's sighting differently. Proof the ocean still runs defense budgets. Tide pools bloom chartreuse under your boots, moon jellies reborn as lava lamps. Somewhere off Puerto Rico, the Milky Sea effect spans hundreds of miles, uncharted, until satellites caught it winking. Your stretch of glow feels smaller, a nightlight for insomniac crabs. The needle glows now, its tip collecting dinoflagellate hitchhickers. Renaissance herbalists prescribed dried bioluminescent algae for melancholy of the blood. You prescribe yourself whiskey later, science marches on. Wind shreds the light show, breaking constellations into drifting sparks. Your shadow stretches 10 feet tall, a giantess weaving with black thread. Monterey Bay workers once sued an aquarium's-led art installation for stealing natural bioluminescence. You huff. Capitalism always crashes the best parties. Dawn's first streak bleaches the magic, turning wonder back into wet rope. The net drips ordinary seawater now, its momentary radiance retreating to the deep. You pocket a pebble still faintly buzzing. Tomorrow's proof. Tonight wasn't sleep deprivation. A tern swoops, its belly momentarily lit like a paper lantern. You count 7 more stitches, each throbbing with the afterimage of sea fire. The ocean burps one last flare, a wink goodbye, as you roll up the mended net. Bioluminescence fades, leaving only salt, and the itch for coffee nudging you home. The gull's cry splits the dark, a serrated knife through sea hush. You flinch, needle freezing mid-stitch, as the bird's shadow skims your shoulder. 10th century Viking navigators timed oar strokes to these shrieks. Distance to land calculations, scratched on walrus ivory. Your math is simpler. Each whale means 3 more knots before the thermos goes cold. Twine rasps against calluses, left, right, left, in time with the bird's offbeat rhythm. Someone's granddad probably called this earning your gull blisters, a badge for coastal insomnia. You're just glad the soundtrack isn't another ASMR streamer whispering about kelp hydration. Moonlight turns your hands into stop-motion puppets, all jerk and twitch under the feathered metronome. 3 stitches, 1 cry, 6 stitches, 2 cries. Historians still argue whether gulls near Dover sound huskier than their Welsh cousins. Something about ale fumes thickening vocal cords. Your team, they're all bastards after yesterday's chip theft. The net doesn't care. It just craves the hypnotic creep. OF Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Your elbow bumps the bait bucket. Rusted metal sings like a tuning fork. 16th century Cornish scribes swore gull feathers in inkwells prevented frozen quills. You've got a bick, but the old ways strangely tempt you tonight. The bird swoops again, its reflection fragments in tidal pools. For a heartbeat, you're weaving not twine, but splintered moonlight. Dawn fingers the horizon, gold bleeds into your peripheral vision. Marine chronometers killed celestial navigation, but your wrists throb with lunar pull anyway. The gull's cry frays into silence, stolen by a trawler's foghorn 3 miles west. You tie off the last knot with numb fingers, a bowline as lopsided as your sleep schedule. Salt spray pricks your neck, the bird's parting gift. Medieval monks considered gulls fallen angels, sent to mock human frailty. You consider this one underpaid. It worked the night shift harder than you did. The net heaves in your arms, a slack sail waiting for winds you can't control. First light reveals 8 new stitches and 0 dignity. Your sweatshirt's on backward again. The gulch behind the dock hums with early bees, nature's caffeine substitute. You swipe crusted brine from your lips, breakfast of accidental ocean enthusiasts. Plankton shimmer fades from your nail beds, temporary tattoos for the nocturnally employed. A cargo ship glides past, its wake slapping the shore with wet applause. You take a bow no one sees, the gull's echo still nested in your joints. 2 hours till high tide, 40 winks if you commit to the bait shed caught. Your knees creak upright, a walrus ivory calculation gone rusty. The net won't mend itself, but oh, the heresy of wishing it could. Wind plucks at loose threads, sloppy work singing its own shameful ballad. You bite the twine, knot it tight with spiteful precision. 19th century lighthouse keepers' journals all mention the gulls, steady as lighthouse beams, twice as shrill. Your great-great-grandkids will read this in some archive laugh at how you romanticized sleep deprivation. A crab side-eyes your boots, sentry of the tide line. You toss it a frayed fiber, an offering to the crustacean overlords. The sea exhales, your shoulders mimic its rise and fall. Muscle memory trumps intention every time. Thermos cap resists, then pops with a submarine's groan. Coffee steam mingles with rotting kelp estuary air freshener. 3 sips in, you finally notice the gulls perched 6 feet away. It stares, judging your life choices with one amber eye. Applause comes post-repairs. You mutter a mantra from your first trawler summer. The bird squawks, drops a mussel shell at your feet. Performance review needs improvement, but snacks accepted. Twilight's last stars dissolve. Your needle's shadow stretches into nothingness. Another net waits in the shed, its holes grinning like missing teeth. The gull flaps upward, its cry stitching earth to sky, needle pulling dawn through canvas. The net inhales, a slow billow lifting its hemp ribs toward the stars. Your own breath hitches, caught in the same tidal rhythm. 17th century Welsh cod fishermen soaked nets in beer, believed the yeast strengthened the fibers against salt rot. You'd offer tonight's work a pint if it stopped tangling. Salt crusts your lips, each lick tastes of birth certificates and wrecked ships. The rope's rough papillae graze your palms, calluses meeting calluses. Someone left a crab claw knotted into the mesh, its pincer still clamped on oblivion. You leave it be, let the sea claim its own souvenirs. A wave exhales nearby, the net shudders like a spooked horse. Historians still argue whether Phoenicians first brought sail mending to these shores, or if the knowledge bubbled up from tidal pools. Your needle stabs, the argument shut focus on the whole gulping moonlight. Your sweatshirt sags, one sleeve salt stiffened into a penguin wing. 18th century sailors swore nets mended under new moons lasted longer, probably just wanted an excuse to nap by day. You've got coffee instead of folklore, though the thermos ran dry hours ago. Fibers rasp, a sound like gramophone records played backward. The claw's owner watches from a rock, clicking disapproval. File a complaint with management. You mutter, nodding defiance into the next stitch. Cold seeps through your knees, pebbles imprinting cuneiform into flesh. Wind plucks a loose thread, plays it like a bass string. Medieval Breton healers used hemp strands to bind wounds, set the sea's memory in the fibers, sped healing. You wrap a frayed end around your pinky, half expecting miracles, half bracing for tetanus. The net coughs, a sudden jerk as waves retreat. Your needle nicks the webbing between thumb and index finger. Blood beads, salt, and copper joining the night's brine. 14th century Admiralty logs mention scarlet threads, marking emergency repairs. You've just invented maritime horror decor. 2 gulls roost on a nearby buoy. Their debate over mussel rights drowns out the surf. Lunar glare turns their feathers mercury slick. Alchemical experiments gone airborne. You flick a pebble their way. It arcs like a tiny comet before plunging into the drink. Silence rushes in a vacuum where the waves paused mid-breath. Your own lungs burn, too long since you remembered to inhale. The net's next billow lifts the hem of your jeans, saltwater baptism for your left ankle. 6 stitches later, what smells like a whale's cough rolls over the bay. Purported cave art in Anglesey shows Neolithic fishermen riding giant squid. You suddenly regret Googling that at 3 a.m. The net's shadow writhes. Tentacular nonsense, best ignored. High tides approach, thrums through the pebbles. A subsonic growl beneath your palms. 19th century hydrologists mapped coastal vibrations as a form of Morse code. You're pretty sure this one spells sleep deprivation. The crab clacks agreement. Or maybe it's just hungry. Your needle slips again, this time by design. Letting the sea claim, a stitch feels akin to skipping church, sinister and oddly freeing. The gap widens, a yawning maw that whispers good enough. You spit into the hole, seal the bargain with biology. Distant lighthouse strobes bleach the clouds, each flash erasing a constellation. The buoys toll their iron bells, wet and weary as a drowned preacher's chimes. Your spine tries to hum along, vertebrae mistaking themselves for ship timbers. The net's breath quickens, inhales shallower, exhales froth-flecked. It's alive in the way candles are alive, borrowed animation with an expiration date. You loosen your grip, let the fibers dance without your interference. Dawn's first, sigh pales the eastern sky. The night's held breath, finally released. Salt crystallizes in your eyelashes. Blinks become geological events. The crab shuffles off, shift ended. Critique sessions concluded. Unfinished repairs sway like kelp. Tomorrow's problem wearing tonight's exhaustion. You rise, knees popping like champagne corks for a wedding no one attended. The net heaves one last shudder, a lung collapsing under its own weight. Walk away slow. Every step stirs the scent of stranded brine. Your shadow stretches seaward, a bridge made of weariness and lapsed intentions. Let the gulls name it. They've earned the right. Frost feathers across the net's upper strands, nature's lacework, binding hemp to starlight. Your knuckles crackle, each movement a protest, logged by aching cartilage. Breath rolls from your lips. Mist meeting, mist as warmth, battles the bay's exhalations. Victorian-era fishermen rubbed goose fat on their hands. Preservation through poultry-based desperation. You've got pocket warmth and recklessness. Your palms press against sternum fabric, stealing body heat. Somewhere beneath the shingle, frost heaves, split stones with primordial groans, geological arthritis. A 1923 tabloid claimed frost patterns on nets, predicted lottery numbers. The scam ended when winter did. You squint at ice crystals. If they spell 7, you're buying a heated blanket factory. The needle slips, burrows into your thumb's sidekick callus. A crimson pearl swells, freezes before hitting the sand. Historians still argue whether medieval fishwives used frost-hardened nets to increase durability, or if that's just poetic nonsense from bad translations. Your needle balks, thread stiff as ships rigging in February gales. Blow again. Pretend you're a steam engine puffing toward sunrise. Salt rimes your eyebrows, Arctic cosplay achieved with zero effort. Tea left in the thermos has congealed, a sludgy tribute to poor planning. You sip it anyway, bitterness tinged with diesel notes from the flask. A seal's head breaches offshore, its whiskers glint like tinsel in the moonlight. Bring gloves next time. It seems to chide, or maybe that's hypothermia's opening act. Wind sculpts the dunes into frozen waves, land mimicking, sea's restless form. Your knees lock, rising, requires a negotiation with gravity's cruel humor. Fibers snap under tension, the net's frostbite outstripping your own. 16th century repair manuals prescribed horse urine for thawing ropes. You'll stick to mortal suffering. Thanks. Dawn lingers hours away, not even a blush on the horizon. The crab from earlier sidles up its shell, dusted with ice like a T-I-N-Y Chinese letter, E-S-S-E-R-T. You nod, mutual recognition of the night's absurd persistence. It hoists a barnacle trophies for the frostbitten and foolish. Laughter bubbles up sharp and uninvited as your numb fingers fumble a knot. Cold has erased the line between hemp and skin. You're half net now, half human seismograph. Your breath hitches, frost etches filigree on the nearest buoy. Every exhale feels borrowed. The air wants its warmth back. By the 12th failed stitch, you've named the frost patterns, Cyril, Susan. That one looks like a disgruntled sheep. The bay's surface glazes over, a sheet of obsidian under the moon's dismissive glare. You spit on the net, residual defiance in liquid form. It freezes mid-drip, a glacial semicolon in tonight's endless sentence. Stars wheel overhead, their light brittle as seasoned ice. You count 7 shooting stars, make the same wish each time. Let the fibers hold. Let the cold break before you do. Let morning come as something kinder than interrogation. The horizon remains obstinate, no reprieve. Only the net's whispered creaks. Your shadow stretches skeletal, knife-edged against the frost. A half-forgotten sea shanty loops in your skull, a dirge for functional fingers. Salt grates between molars, the taste of eroded time. When the final knot cinches shut, it's less triumph than surrender. Your hands resemble starfish, pale, rigid, barely yours. Frost clings to your sleeves, crumbling like ancient papyrus as you stand. The net inhales, a rasping breath that could mean thanks or taunt. Walk backward to the dunes, sand colder than a lone shark's smile. Each footprint fills with frost, the bay scribbling over your presence. The crab watches judge and jury of this silent trial. You raise your thermos in salute. The grit inside clinks like distant applause. Sand grinds between wool layers. Your borrowed sweater smells of lanolin and loneliness. The needle's path blurs. Each stitch becomes a character in some damp alphabetic. Every overlap whispers, a half-forgotten verb for mend or mourn or wait. Latin sails used similar weaves. Phoenician traders knotted cargo manifests into rigging for illiterate crewmen. You imagine their ropes, ancient spreadsheets fraying under Mediterranean suns. A breeze riffles the net, pages turning in a library. No humans stepped inside. Your thumbnail catches a snag, history trapped in twine. Naval logs from Plymouth once documented a sailor who read storm warnings in his mending work, dismissed until his repairs outlasted a hurricane. The War Office buried the report, too mystical for Britannia's pride. Your knuckles brush a knot shaped like a hanged man, ominous, but probably just bad craftsmanship. Thread hisses through hemp, a serpentine vowel only gulls comprehend. Historians still debate whether Celtic fish traps held Ogham script, or if scholars mistake barnacle scars for runes. You etch a crude A. Let future academics lose sleep over it. Moonlight bends around the mesh, projecting shadow letters on wet sand. They dissolve before you parse them, the sea's spoiler policy in full effect. Your thermos roll capsizes, cold tea baptizes the tide line. 19th century dyers used fermented urine to fix hues, a fact you regret knowing as ammonia ghosts haunt the air. Palm up, you catch sleet needles melting into braille messages. Too numb to decode them, that Baltic myth whispers back weavers who stitched their regrets into linen, then burned the threads to mute old shames. Your needle falters. Was that an S or a snapped promise? 3 knots left. 2, 1. The net tenses like a rebuked spine. It'll hold sprats and secrets equally. Wind unspools a loose thread, your ballad's last verse fleeing toward Cardigan Bay. You lick salt from cracked lips, tasting every word the waves stole. Barnacles crunch underfoot. Low tide bears the bay's blackened molars. You kneel where seawater retreated its absence, leaving breathy hollows in the sand. The net drapes like a confession booth's curtain frayed hemp, absorbing secrets your ribs can't cage. Venetians once wove glass fishing floats into nets. Each knot's placement signaled safe routes past rival harbors. You press a palm to the twine, wondering what maps your own mending might chart. A hermit crab negotiates your shadow, clinking shell against pebbles in Morse code. Tell that to someone who cares, you mutter, but the words dissolve into the net's lattice. Moonlight catches a strand you missed. It glistens like the saliva trails of Celtic folklore. Coastal wives whispered that mending nets at moonrise could lure shape-shifting seals ashore, a myth you half believe when fog creeps inland. Your needle stabs the rhythm of a guilty heartbeat. Remember the lichen. You ask the twine, though it already knows. That summer, you pocketed a stone from St. David's shrine, petty sacrilege for 12 years, regret. Historians still argue whether medieval friars encoded pilgrim vows into fishing weirs, or if saltwater's just good at blurring truth. The net tugs your wrist southward, toward the chained 15th century Bibles rusting in Cardigan's silt. Cool air carries a whiff of Cardiff's coal-fired past, or maybe that's your campfire sulking in the dunes. Dinners, mackerel bones glint nearby, vertebrae forming a question mark in the sand. You whisper to the net about the job offer, Tokyo skyscrapers versus this stubborn shoreline. The hemp drinks your dilemma, each loop a jury member shrugging. Dew seeps through your knees, a cold communion. You mention the miscounted stitches in Granny's deathbed shawl, how its uneven edge still haunts your best work. Out near the buoy, something breaches, porpoise, or mutant salmon, depending on the homebrew the old dockmaster shares. Your laughter startles a nesting oyster catcher, its protest notes blending with the sea's static. 3 stones click in your pocket, one for each lie you've told this week. The smallest warms as you admit stealing kisses from a lifeboat painter's daughter. Never mind, she's engaged to Swansea's sturdiest farrier. Your needle ducks through the mesh, sewing shut that particular box of wasps. 19th century rum runners hid love letters in lobster pots. Or was it gin prescriptions for seasick vicars? The details rot like untended knots. Wind riffles the nets, edge your mother's sigh from 20 winters past. You recount her funeral dockside, how the casket bobbled in the rowboat like bad comedy. Salt crystallizes on your lashes, could pass for tears if cameras rolled. 2 phosphorescent squids glide shoreward, translucent jurors judging your selective nostalgia. The confession grows teeth. You spit out the unlit fuse of last summer's harbor brawl. How the gobshoot tourist deserved worse than a gutted dinghy. The net tightens, approving or warning, depending on the listener's bias. Moonbeams stitch your shadow to the tide line, a reluctant silhouette awaiting verdict. When you finally mention the fire, the one that ate through Dad's boathouse and insurance, lies, the bay holds its breath. Waves still to polished obsidian, sand fleas cease their jitterbug. Even the damn hermit crab pauses mid-carpool. Your needle slips, blood beads bright as a buoy light. The net drinks this too, your DNA sewn into maritime forensics. First light pries at the horizon, peeling back the safe darkness. Your words retreat into kelp forests. Today's catch will drag them up all the same. The moon dips westward, tucking stutters and half-truths into riptides. Pebbles rattle their applause, or maybe it's just the sea resetting its table. You stand knees popping like weathered trawler planks. Wind plucks a loose thread from the net, your ballad's final stanza, fleeing toward Ireland. The tide returns, penitent, smudging every footprint, every oath, every imperfect stitch. Black water cradles the buoy, its iron belly groaning with each tidal yawn. The bell tolls every 7 seconds. Victorian engineers swore this interval staved off sailors' madness. You count between chimes, lungs sinking to the rhythm like a cursed metronome. 16th century monks smuggled prayer scrolls inside buoy chains, their parchment, now crab food beneath your boots. Your needle pierces, hemp over under over, matching the bell's drowsy mathematics. Dockhands whisper that buoys develop accents, cardigans clang deeper than Pembrokeshire's tinny ping. You snort, imagining harbor masters debating vowel sounds in iron reverberations. Night air thickens, salted and heavy, as the wool blanket gran knitted from retired nets. Fiberglass boats bob like obedient ducks further out, their hulls slick with modernity's impatience. You stick to tarred hemp, it warps kindly under half-drunk hands. A knot slips, 5 minutes, work undone. The bell mocks with another droning clang. Maritime historians still argue whether lighthouse keepers' wives taught them Morse code, or if loneliness invents its own language. You reinvent a sailor's curse, something involving a flatulent walrus and a bishop's missing hat. The net chuckles in its sleep. Waves slap the buoy's chain a sound like wet rope on a wetter carcass. Victorian mariners believed buoys housed shipwrecked souls. You hum a hymn to placate the clanking dead. Your right hand cramps, the left keeps stitching from muscle memory. Calluses tap dance across twine, a vaudeville act for barnacle audiences. Lantern light bleeds across the bay Cardigan's last pub, ejecting its drinkers. The buoy's shadow sketches a wobbly halo on the water. You squint for half a breath. It looks like a keyhole. Someone once told you every Welsh cove hides a drowned church, its bells still pealing in reverse. You thread another suture, hemp fibers softer than a doubter's resolve. The tide pivots, chain links screech like unoiled puppets. Your eyelids dip, needle tracing the same path 3 times. 17th century smugglers timed rum runs between buoy chimes, a fact you'd exploit if contraband paid better than net repair. Salt crusts your lips, flakes shimmering like false promises. A cormorant lands atop the buoy, its silhouette suggesting a widowed queen. You nod regal to regal as it preens oilslick feathers. Cold seeps through your jeans, knees fossilizing into coastal bedrock. The bell tolls. You stitch. The bird judges. Somewhere beyond the headland, a trawler coughs awake. 14 stitches blur into a single motion, needle darting like a minnow through kelp. The net's holes shrink, not from skill, but stubbornness. Dawn lingers 6 kilometers offshore, a shy guest nibbling horizon canapes. Your grandmother's voice surfaces, uninvited, recounting how mermaids darn nets with moonbeam thread during total eclipses. You check the sky, just stars, bleary and indifferent. The buoy's chain snaps taut, a wet thunk vibrates through seabed to spine. You freeze, half expecting Neptune's pissed-off tax collector to surface. Waves slurp the shingle, a sound like God drinking lukewarm tea. Needle pricks your thumbs salt, and iron bloom together. First shift, trawlermen trudge past their boots, crunching cockle shells into nihilist haiku. You pretend invisibility, breath held until their torchlight fades. The net's repaired section undulates, a phantom jellyfish pulse. 93 stitches since moonrise, not that anyone's counting. Bell tolls sync with your pulse, now a worrying development. You lean back, sand molds to your spine like a memory foam sepulcher. Fishermen in the 1800s blamed buoy bells for wives' miscarriages, superstition thick as harbor fog. Your fingers keep working, autonomous as barnacles colonizing a corpse. Black water rises, licking your toolkit, claiming pliers and dignity. The buoy's lantern winks once, a conspirator's farewell. Your hands move without you, ghost limbs, guided by centuries of cracked knuckles and split lips. Somewhere beneath the bay, a church bell answers. Or maybe it's just the tide, playing telephone with eternity. A rusted hook snags the net, its barbed curve surfacing like a forgotten secret. 19th century wrecks plague Cardigan, bay 37 ships, still barnacled to the seabed, per Lloyd's register. You pinch the corroded metal, cold leaches into your palm. Local drunks, swear salvagers, pulled up a gramophone, playing sea shanties in 1923. Its brass horn crusted with cowrie babies. The hook's eye stares, a bronze pupil daring you to ask its story. You thread frayed hemp through the loop, rust flakes snowing onto your thighs. Historians still argue whether sailors avoided retrieving Roman coins. Afraid Neptune would claim double tribute. Your needle balks at the thick metal. It's like trying to suture a tin can. Waves hiss, you hiss back, a standoff between mammal and mineral. Cold water sluices over the net. The hook jangles like a jailer's keyring. 18th century, pirates allegedly shot cannonballs of frozen mercury at naval ships, a myth you'd pay to test. Your knuckle grazes the barb, blood beads dark as squid ink. The salt mocks your carelessness, nature's passive-aggressive first aid instructor. Lantern light glints off corrosion, green patina forming archipelagos across the metal. You hum a dockworker's dirge. The hook vibrates in tempo. Somewhere below, the wreck it escaped from groans, ribs creaking in TID, a L Chinese letter. 3 mackerel scales glitter on your boot, fish confetti from yesterday's struggle. A rush of bubbles erupts 2 meters offshore, as if the bay just sighed. Your pulse thumps the fisherman's waltz, 3 beats quick, 1 slow. Victorian archivists catalogued ship names like orphaned children, the Mari Stella, Waves Folly, Lady of Infinite Spite. You almost name the hook, but kinship with inanimate objects feels portentous at this hour. Twine knots around the relic. It hangs suspended. A melted crucifix meets industrial age. 17 barnacle husks cling to its shaft, each a calcified lifetime. You wonder if the original owner fought pirates or just lost bait to clever cod. The hook swings, casting a shadow like a broken anchor. Moonlight polishes the bay, electric blue ripples race toward Ireland. Cold seeps through your jacket, zipper teeth chattering like a wind-up toy. The net balloons around the hook, a spider web cradling a motorcycle part. You consider seeking pliers. Your toolkit now sleeps with the drowned. A night heron croaks, its cry ripping the silence like Velcro. You mimic it, badly ruining the moment. Tide pool critters scuttle, judgmental, as theater critics. The buoy's bell tolls, knelling for whatever the hook once pulled under. Waves scratch the pebbles, eternally revising their manifesto. You cinch the final knot, hemp melding with rust in unholy matrimony. Marine archaeologists might call this desecration. You call it recycling with flair. First light pokes the horizon, cheap mascara smudges beneath the stars. The hook sways, a pendulum, measuring night's last shudder. Your grandmother's voice echoes. What's lost always circles back, salt finds salt. You pocket a rust flake, tangible evidence of persistence. The net billows, new steel fangs, amidst aged linen gums. Legend claims hooks hoard murder victims' final breaths. You press your ear to cold metal. Only the bay's perpetual exhale answers, a chorus of dissolved stories. Boots squelch toward shore, sand relinquishes your footprints like overripe fruit. Dawn plucks the hook's shadow from the water, stowing it in day's blind spot. 111 stitches, whisper the seas resume. Destroyer, preserver, part-time archivist. Chimes fade, sailors' ghosts clocking out with the tide. You swallow a yawn mouth tasting of iron and reluctant dawn. Somewhere beneath your soles, a shipwreck adjusts to its newest missing piece. Rust flakes dust your lap like carcinogenic snow, each fleck a pixel of decayed ambition. Plankton blooms ignite offshore, their blue-green glow smearing the waves like crumpled cellophane. Victorian widows wove loved one's hair into mourning brooches. You braid synthetic twine with strands from your own nape. The net accepts this offering, knots tightening around follicular ghosts. A skipjack tuna's spine surfaces in the mesh, vertebrae clicking like an abacus, tallying regrets. 17 years since the Mari Stella. Exhibit your thesis on Baltic trade routes moldering in Cardiff's archives. Cold seeps through your oilskin, zipper teeth chatter Morse code for abandoned ship. The needle slips, pricking your index finger. A ruby droplet swells. Historians still argue whether medieval sailors avoided dragging nets near ship graves, fearing skeletal fingers might hitchhike shoreward. Your blood dyes the twine, a scarlet bead gliding toward the phosphorescence. Somewhere below, the hulk of waves folly creaks, its hold still packed with Portuguese wine bottles. Salvage divers in 08 claimed the corked vintages tasted of almonds and spite. You imagine pouring a glass, toast to the technicality that drowning isn't technically suffocation. Moonlight lacquers the waves, liquid mercury pooling around your boots. A barnacle crumbles under your thumb, its calcite plates fanning out like a dead man's hand. Mussels cluster on nearby rocks, valves gaping as if mid-scream. 18th century captains paid crewmen extra for singing, believing shanties kept barnacles from crusting hulls. The tactic failed, much like your vow to quit nicotine after 30. Cold numbs your septum. Each breath smells of iodine and diesel. Your grandmother's voice loops. They don't burn widows here anymore, but the sea does it slow. She taught you the reef knot, two loops always mourning each other. The net sags, weighted with memories you swore to jettison. glowing jelly surface, translucent umbrellas, pulsing with stolen moonlight. Their bioluminescence stains your hands cyan, fingers morphing into drowned electric eels. Marine biologists insist gelatinous species lack sentience. You beg to differ when their tentacles salute your needle. 1940s gossip columns claimed Errol Flynn smuggled Spanish gold through these coves, stashing loot under false lobster traps. Your nail snags a filament, monofilament recoils like a betrayed lover. Tide pools replicate the starscape above microcosms, winking with refractured Venus. You stitch a kelp strand into the weave, its mucilage gluing past to present. 2 fishermen's sweaters decompose in your closet, darning while now nesting material for storm petrels. A baby octopus inks through the shallows, its escape plan written in vanishing Sanskrit. Waves regurgitate a harmonica, its rusted reeds buzzing like a wasp funeral. You pocket it despite better judgment, another relic for the shoebox under your bed. Salt crystallizes in your eyelashes, tears the sea stole, and returned as grit. Dawn's first knife slash parts the horizon pink, seeping through night's canvas. The net bulges with spectral cargo, every knot a headstone, every gap a confession. Your flask's last whiskey stings, peaty defiance against the coming light. A cormorant crash lands nearby, neck skewed like a question mark. It regards your handiwork, one black eye judging your life choices. You count 8 whole repairs, or maybe 9, ethics blur with sleep deprivation. The tide retreats, exposing worm casts that squirm like cursive threats. Your needle trembles, fatigue transmuting hemp into liquid lead. 17 centuries ago, this bay bristled with Roman fishing weirs, traps within traps. Archaeologists found olive pits in the silt, proof that conquest smells like brined fruit. Blisters split open saltwater baptism for your mapmaker's palms. You hum a lullaby from a Zagreb folk album, €3 at a flea market in 19. The net shivers recognizing the melody, or just choking on plankton. Last stitch cinched, you lean back as waves applaud with half-hearted slaps. Phosphorescent trails fade their blue ghosts, fleeing solar scrutiny. 2 strands of your hair now brace the wreck of a marriage proposal, its dissolution dated via tide charts. Boots suction-free from the seabed, each step upward a betrayal of gravity. The net undulates, newly grafted scars eclipsing old wounds. Somewhere beyond the breakers, a bulkhead door groans, another regret refusing to surface. The dawn licks your eyelids raw, its artificial butter yellow light spilling across botched repairs. Last night's confidence curdles, the net sags like a drunk's grin, holes winking where you swore they'd closed. 17th century Cornish menders used horsehair soaked in beer. They believed hops warded off jellyfish stings. You might tried it. God knows this net needs something stronger than your overpriced UV thread. A cormorant drifts belly up in the shallows, beak parted mid-snarky comment about your craftsmanship. You nudge it with a boot, turns out it's just sleeping. Because even birds mock you, ironically now. Frayed twine whips your cheek, spiteful little reminder to check your tension. Historians still argue whether Tudor fishing guilds abandoned full moon mending for practical reasons or fear of Celtic sabotage. The debate plays out in your head, needle stabbing the repair like a pen signing bad treaties. Modern trawlermen whisper it. Nets patched at sunrise turn transparent by noon. Ghost lines catching only regrets. You squint. Is that patch already fading? Or is the whiskey still exiting your bloodstream? Waves slap rockweed rhythmically. Nature's passive-aggressive slow clap. Salt crystallizes in the gaps. Your stitches look like arthritic spiderwebs holding hands. 3 barnacles cling to the net's edge, their calcium carbonate shells arranged like a middle finger. You flick one off. It skips twice before sinking with judgmental poise. Your thumb finds a missed tangle, kinked tighter than a banker's moral compass. Should have used the brass figure X gave you, the one engraved with for untying what should stay knotted. Sunlight glares through a hole, projecting a perfect halo onto your chest. You laugh, sainthood's poor consolation for sloppy knotwork. Blisters throb to the tide's tempo, your palms stuttering, we tried in Morse. A jellyfish floats past, translucent membrane pulsing, like your 6th missed call notification. Briny wind riffles the net, ancient hand-me-down stench of cod liver and abandonment. 18th century Welsh widows burned rosemary at dawn to blind jealous sea spirits. Your sippos out of fluid. A half-eaten protein bar offers no substitutive magic. Needlework blurs. When did your hands become 2 traitors wearing your fingerprints? The cormorant croaks, avian punchline to this cosmic joke of persistence. You fork over a sardine from your pocket, last night's failed lure now tribute. Its gulp sounds suspiciously like you'll fuck it up again tomorrow. Fair. Waves regurgitate a plastic tampon applicator. The sea's commentary on reusable menstrual products. You weave it into the net, pink flag of surrender, masquerading as art. Shadows shrink, sunlight crawls up your calves like a guilt trip. Blades of grass prickle your ankles, lands, first tentative reclaiming of your body. 2 gulls fight over a crab, corpse their shrieks, the original toxic podcast. You spit into the surf. Saliva swirls into the Mari's Stella's wine-dark wake. Fingernails split, 8 tiny Cheshire grins mocking your hubris. Should worn gloves, should have married the accountant, should have taken that grant in Melbourne. The net shudders, breathing like a lung pierced by shrapnel. You press your ear to the fibers. Hear only the tinnitus of a million escaped fish. A tourist drone buzzes overhead, swerving like a drunk firefly. You throw a mussel shell, it arcs, featherless, into oblivion. Applause erupts from nowhere, probably just a wave hitting a hollow rock. Or the ghosts of Vikings who drowned trying to herd herring with spears. Noon looms, the repaired sections, now gossamer, spectral. You poke a hole, finger sinks through like chilled butter. Modern problem solving demands duct tape or delusion. You choose both. The cormorant watches, one eye narrowed in avian OSHA violation assessment. Sand grinds between molars, breakfast's gritty sequel. Your stomach growls the opening bars of Nearer, My God to Thee. Thread snaps recoil, whips your wrist. Another white hair weaves itself into the net, time's cruel collaboration. Shadows pivot, sunlight knives the bay into shards. You step back, the net's silhouette resembles your third-grade report card. All CS for tries hard. Waves murmur platitudes about second chances. You peel seaweed off your shin. Its mucus trail spells FFS in organic gel. The harmonica in your pocket wheezes. Honers rebuke for neglecting its rust. You hum through cracked lips, a nursery rhyme about 3 drownings and a funeral pyre. Light bleaches the horizon, truth serum for half-assed miracles. You kneel, salt water soaks your knees, and begin again. The empty net hangs heavy linen sagging like a gym membership you keep meaning to cancel. Each hole gapes wide, your stitches straining to hold nothingness itself. 16th century, Breton fishers believed slack nets needed feeding. They'd toss lumps of lard into the mesh at low tide. You've got half a Snickers in your pocket, modern equivalent of appeasing hungry twine. Sand trickles through the gaps, time's payload escaping your amateur repairs. The holes aren't failures, you tell yourself, just invitations for future fish. An 1897 issue of Mariners, monthly claimed herring shoals, preferred nets, mended by left-handed widows. You're right-handed and decidedly alive. This explains the emptiness humming through each loop. Historians still argue whether that article was satire, or if Victorian mariners genuinely rage quit over dominant hands. Your needle snags, a hairline crack in the brass eyelet catches the thread. Should have listened when Aunt Rhiannon warned you, saltwater cubits always kink southpaw tools. No clue what that meant. She also claimed selkies clogged her bidet. Twilight stains the horizon vermilion. The net drinks the color greedily. Holes glowing like cigarette burns in a film reel. A jellyfish drifts into the shallows. Translucent umbrella fringed with cells that'll sting your stupidity into next week. You salute it with your fid. Fair play, Nidarian overlord. The tide retreats, exposing kelp ropes studded with blue mussels. Their black shells glisten, 1,000 judgmental eyes clicking in unison. 18th century Aberystwyth church records mention nets hung in rafters during Lent. So God remembers what hunger feels like. You mutter a grocery list instead. Divinity's been outsourced to Uber Eats. The western wind carries diesel fumes from a trawler, its hull streaked with gull shit and existential dread. Twine bites into your palm, leaving wheels that mirror the net's own scars. 3 pelicans glide overhead, their beaks suggesting they've come to audit your work. One drops a mackerel spine, the ocean's Yelp review of your craftsmanship. You pocket it Failure makes decent guitar picks. Your ex's voice surfaces. You can't mend what wasn't whole to begin with. Classic bait, always mixing breakup singers with amateur philosophy. A cormorant perches on the net's edge, its oily feathers reek of dead-end gig economy jobs. You toss a pebble, it misses. The bird's smirk outlives the Pleistocene epoch. Numbness climbs your wrists, frostbite or despair, hard to tell. 19th century Norwegian whalers, stuffed mittens with dried seaweed, said it channeled Celtic resilience. Your gloves went overboard last Tuesday, sacrificed to a wave that giggled while claiming them. Fingertips throb, blisters singing sea shanties in minor keys. A drone buzzes, its camera lens glinting like a sniper's scope. You flip it off, the universal salute for unpaid influencers. The machine flees you half expect. A tick-tock montage titled Crabby Welshwoman yells at sky. Moonrise stains the bay mercury silver. The net drinks it hungrily. Holes becoming portholes to somewhere kinder. You press your ear to a gap. Hear only the hum of submarine cables ferrying memes across oceans. 3 stars pierce the mesh, Orion's dagger, pinning your doubts to the night. Plankton blooms ignite offshore, neon blue bioluminescence rippling like a rave no one invited you to. Your shadow tangos with the glow, a discordant waltz witnessed only by barnacles. The Zippo's dead, no flame to mimic Prometheus tonight. Dawn crouches on the horizon, pink talons shredding the last of the dark. Salt crusts your lips, tastes like the Atlantic's final word. You touch the net's edge, holes flex open like baby birds waiting to be fed. They'll come back. They always do. Burrs carve alphabet roads into your palms, each blister a pulsing waypoint. Your grip on the netting wakes fresh pain. Cartography of devotion, written in clockwise burns. Viking longship captains steered by Polaris, its cold eye sharper than any iron rivet. You've got Orion's belt pooling in your left lifeline. 3 pustules aligned like fate's own asterism. Salt grinds into the wounds, nature's tattoo artist working pro bono. The net's hemp fibers twist under your thumbs, rough as the rope that hanged Black Bart Roberts off Cape Lopez. Historians still argue whether the Pirate King's final words cursed the crown or recited a limerick about turnips. Your own swearing's more creative, a haiku of guttural vowels, even the gull's side-eye. Blood blisters bloom like bryony berries, sapphire centers veined with red. 19th century whalers swore hand, lesions spun clockwise before typhoons. You check yours. 3 pirouette north, maybe storm warnings, maybe last night's cheap whiskey. The Zippo's corpse digs into your hip, your sole inheritance from Dad, besides commitment issues. A knot slips, coarse twine whips your wrist. The welt rises instantly, Mercury's comet searing across your zodiac of abrasions. You suck the sting, tastes like copper pennies. And the 1998 Bordeaux Aunt Rhiannon cellared in her garage. She drank it all during Waitake, Claimed fermented grapes beat canned beans for apocalypse prep. Moonlight puddles in your cupped hands. Liquid silver pooling where blisters burst. Medieval astrologers mapped destinies in such spills, reading eclipses in ale stains and phlegm. Your own palm reflects Sagittarius. If constellations were designed by a caffeinated toddler with a spray can. The net sags its weight, demanding your fumbling return. Twine rasps over raw flesh. Each pull writes a new latitude. Calluses split. Pink cracks, revealing subcutaneous stardust. Tennessee River pilots once navigated fog by pressing palms to current, feeling whirlpools braille through callous grids. You try it. The night air whispers nothing but arthritis forecasts. Your left thumb weeps plasma. Warm droplets freckle the sand. They'll fossilize by dawn, amber capsules, holding DNA and bad decisions. A 1943 field guide to naval semaphore winks from memory. Blisters speak louder than signal flags when morale sinks. You raise your mangled hands, the universal gesture for screw profundity. Pass the antiseptic. Dew soaks through your boots, reviving foot blisters thought dead since 22. The net jerks, a stray current plucking its threads like harp strings. You brace, palms screaming as hemp grinds into inflamed dermis. 17th century lacemakers' hands often eroded completely generations, reduced to nubs, still threading bobbins. You've got 10 digits left. Progress, sort of. East blisters rupture first. Their collapse, spraying salt nova luminescence. You press thumbs to eyelids, retinas, painting auroras from the pain's afterimage. Someone's laughter carries over the breakers. Old fisherman Willie from Dock C. Or maybe Loki testing new material. Either way, it's not helping. Fingernails chip against the nets. Spine each tier reveals crescent moons in keratin. Dutch sailors glued seashells to shredded cuticles, believing crustacean armor warded off kraken attacks. You settle for duct tape, 25th century's answer to folk medicine. The adhesive shrieks coming off, a sound felt more in molars than ears. Venomous fire climbs your tendons, each movement a referendum on human endurance. You mimic great Aunt Enid's rheumatoid crouch, the posture that birthed family legends, and 2 herniated discs. The net mocks your suffering, its knots lounging like smug cats in sunbeams. Dawn licks the horizon, blisters purpling into topography maps of unexplored planets. You flex, joints popping Morse code for abandoned ship. Stars fade, but your hands still glow with their stolen light. Press palms to wet sand, leave constellations in negative space. Let the tide carry those ghost compasses out. Let them guide whatever's lost enough to need you. Iron groans beneath the waves, a bassoon solo played by grudging giants. Your souls remember Victorian anchor designs, those pyramid-shaped admiralty weights that snagged entire coral reefs. Tonight's chains twist older, Celtic knots forged, when Rome still craved British tin. The vibration climbs your calves, a subsonic massage shaking loose every bad decision since breakfast. 200 years back, sailors polished anchor links to mirror shine, not for rust prevention. They believed dull metal attracted storm hags who'd braid their beards into the rigging. Your boots tap the damp planks, testing if Morse code still works through rotted wood. Wouldn't mind a hag right now. Free depilation beats this blister colony mutiny. A link shrieks against rock, sound waves rippling up through your molars. Historians still argue whether midnight chain rattling was a navigation check or crews lying to explain sneaking swigs of rum. Your own flask holds Earl Grey lukewarm heresy that gets the job done. The net sways above its shadow, darning holes in the moonlight. Tide yanks the chain taut, sudden tension that hums in your fillings. 17th century divers once gripped anchor ropes as descent guides, their lung-bursting plunges rewarded with pearl-dusted drownings. You kick off sandals, let soles fuse with the shuddering dock. Toe blisters meet galvanized steel, a romance doomed by salt and poor choices. One particular clang echoes longer, the chains cry bending around submerged wreckage. Marine archaeologists found a nor'easter's anchor wedged in a sperm whale's skull, 1863. Same week Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Coincidence or cosmic punchline? The whale's opinions written in fractured scapula. Rust flakes collect between your toes, ochre confetti for the world's saddest parade. A 1920s tabloid claimed anarchists smuggled bomb blueprints in anchor chain impurities. You squint at the debris nope, just decades of corrosion and gull vomit. The chain jerks, spinning you into a clumsy waltz with nobody. Teak planks creak underfoot their splinters, hosting entire dynasties of shipworm larvae. You hum a sea shanty backwards, lyrics dissolving into yawns halfway through. HMS Victory's crew did this during calm nights, believing reversed tunes repelled deaf sea witches. Didn't work. Nelson still got shot. Palms flatten against the vibrating rail, your bones conducting the harbor's secrets. That one loose molar throbs, its roots keeping rhythm like a metronome with commitment issues. 19th century dentists used anchor chains as extraction tools. Patient testimonies exist, but not many. Moonlight stripes the metal, each rust patch a Rorschach blot, demanding interpretation. That one's whales if you squint, that one's your ex's smirk circa 19. The chain slackens, its coiled aggression spent for the moment. You spit into the tide, saliva arc, rivaling Neptune's weakest fountain. A cormorant crashes onto the nearest buoy, its webbed feet slapping iron like a novice tap dancer. The bird glares, you're both here for the same reason. Stubbornness masquerading as duty. Chain vibrations soften, subsiding into lullaby territory. Your knees buckle, not from fatigue, but the dock's sly rockabye sway. Eyelids dip, the world narrows to iron's heartbeat against barnacled wood. Somewhere below, crustaceans perform maintenance, scuttling across links like tiny engineers. A yawn cracks your jaw, the sound echoes off a passing trawler's hull. Anchor chains don't sing you to sleep, they dare you to stay awake. You lose the bet. The stench hits first, rotten muscles and diesel fuel, a nasal time machine yanking you backward. Memory wraps around like that scratchy wool blanket Gran always kept on the mooring post. You're 8 again, knees skinned from Cromer jetty, watching Grandad's knife flicker through bait bags. He called mussels sea taffy, claimed Victorian fishmongers sold them sugared in paper cones. True story, 19th century street vendors boiled shellfish with molasses as sailor's candy. Your fingers itch with phantom stickiness. That day, you stole a fistful and vomited overboard. Twine snaps, reality wavers. The net in your hands becomes Grandad's patched waistcoat, same uneven stitches. He'd chew kelp gum while working, jaw grinding like a tugboat engine. Don't hurry the hole, he'd say, spitting brine into the wind. Tide's got all the time we don't. A barnacle slices your thumb, same spot he nicked teaching you clove hitches. Blood beads black in the moonlight, your private inkwell. Historians still argue whether Cornish wreckers used crab blood to forge salvage maps. Grandad swore by squid ink, once wrote your birthday card with it during a lean season. Your needle tugs through hemp rhythm syncing with long-gone radio static. 2 a.m. shipping forecasts used to pour from his transistor, lists of sinking barometers and gale warnings. You'd drowsily chart pretend storms in the margins of his ledger, adding mermaids where the ink smudged. Moldy netting clings to your wrist, same stubborn curl as his mutton chop whiskers. He smelled of pickle brine, and player's navy cut, a walking preservation experiment. That time, he fell asleep smoking, singed beard hair lingering for weeks, like a guilty confession. Something glints in the mesh, a mussel shell wedged tight. Grandad's voice rasps in your ears. Never trust a shellfish that shinies. Turns out, he was right. 20th century conmen sold painted clams as mermaid snuff boxes to tourists. You wedge the shell into your pocket, a greasy talisman. Fog creeps in thick as the pep talk he gave when the trawler engine died. Repairing's just controlled unraveling. He'd mutter half to you, half to the balky carburetor. Diesel had crystallized in the fuel line. You spent hours picking it out with a hairpin. Wind shifts, bringing the reek of low-tide flats. He once convinced you lugworm castings were chocolate sprinkles. Your tongue still remembers that gritty betrayal, the way he laughed until his denture slipped. The needle slips, piercing your thumbnail. You suck the wound reflexively, tasting iron and gull musk. Funny how bodies hold accidents longer than triumphs. Your shin still twinges where the harbor seal bit you. Moonlight bleaches the net silvery, same shade as Grandad's hair after the pneumonia winter. He'd started mending lobster pots obsessively, feverish fingers working through delirium. Gotta fix what's left, he'd wheeze, threading twine through air. A wet skein slaps your cheek, Saltwater shock therapy. The past loosens its grip mostly. Your flask's gone cold, Earl Grey turned brackish. You drink it anyway, toast dripping toward whales. Tide pool critters scritch-scratch beneath the dock, distant cousins to Grandad's pocketful of periwinkles. Always had a shell or three rolling in his overalls, claimed they amplified good gossip. The morning his heart gave out, they found a cowrie in his shoe. Fingers cramp, you've been twisting twine too tight. He warned you about that, said clenched hands make sieve nets. Let the sea do the holding. He'd insist, palms upturned like a swap meet saint. Dawn's first sneer breaches the horizon pink as his nose, after rum nightcaps, the repaired net sags, sloppier than your first attempt at darning socks. Gran pretended to wear those lumpy abominations, winked when you caught her accidentally spilling tea on them. Motor oil rainbows swirl below, hypnotic as his pocket watch chain. You hum Daqua, Engariad off-key, but the cormorants don't judge. Grandad's falsetto used to scare fulmars off their nests, a talent he wielded proudly. The final knot swells with dawn's humidity, refusing to stay cinched. You hear his chuckle, cigarette crackled and unrepentant. There's your sign to quit, he'd say, eyes crinkling above the sodden thermos. But he'd keep working. Always did. Wind sneaks under your collar, mean-spirited reminder that wool beats cotton. Your joints creak the same symphony his did, knees and tides, singing in discordant harmony. Tomorrow's nets will need mending, same as yesterday's. You spit in the general direction of progress, a tradition he'd appreciate. The knot defies you, a snarled oath of hemp and hubris. Your thumbnail splits trying to pry it loose, same stubborn tangle that defeated Phoenician sailors 3 millennia back. They invented the sheepshank not for shortening ropes without cuts, clever bastards. But even they'd torch this mess with a prayer. Grandad's voice rumbles through the mutiny in your palms. Some webs ain't meant to stay woven. His ghost smells of nicotine and disappointment. You imagine seething Athenian nobles watching Alexander slice through that Gordian headache. Historians still bicker whether he cheated or innovated. Doesn't matter. The sea prefers blunt solutions. Rust flakes off your knife. Its edge remembers slicing through squid ink sausage at midsummer feasts. Someone once tried selling mermaid lard in Newlyn Harbor, rendered dolphin blubber, passed off as magical ointment. The blade hesitates. Ritual requires hesitation, then shears through decades of salt-caked fiber. Silence follows the shocked pause after a lighthouse goes dark. Broken threads writhe like severed tentacles. Your chest tightens, same shame as dropping Gran's gravy boat aged 11. But the wrecked strands whisper something unexpected relief. Dawn bleeds through the gap, a sliver of salmon light. Ancient Celts believed cut nets released trapped spirits back to the waves. Your fingers hover, half expecting kelpie teeth or mermaid bones to spill out. Only gull feathers emerge tattered and salt crisp. Renewal stings worse than brine in a paper cut. You spit on the fresh twine. Old dockhands swore saliva made knots hold better. Granddad called it superstition, yet he'd always lick the final hitch for luck. The lie tastes familiar, copper and hope. New hemp feels greedy, sucking blisters raw as it weaves through surviving mesh. Offshore, a cormorant dives. Its silhouette mirrors your curved spine. They steal baitfish by tying them into underwater knots, nature's own pirates. You've started respecting thieves. The mended stretch glows pale against weathered threads, a scarred mosaic. Viking nets bore similar patches. Their sagas mention mending raids between fishing seasons. Modern reenactors use dental floss for authenticity. A tidbit you'll never admit sounds plausible. Footsteps crunch on shingle, not mortal ones. Every breaker carries echoes of Granddad's shuffle and drag gait. Told you to keep shears sharp. He'd chide, already reaching for the discarded tangle. His phantom hands rework ruin into something supple, a lesson in purposeful destruction. Tide nips at your boots, hungry for the abandoned fibers. Let it feast. Tomorrow's catch will judge your mercy. For now, the cut burns cleaner than regret. Your palms rasp against hemp, not oar handles. Not anymore. But the push-pull groove remains. Calluses align with phantom blisters from a skiff lost to the 93 storm. Roman biremes once patrolled these waves. They'd lash rowers' benches with sheep fat to stop chafing. You grin, imagine legionnaires debating Pamphylian, olive oil vs Welsh lard. Twine passes shuttle-like through your fists, each tug mirroring old oar strokes. Offshore, a cormorant rides choppy water, its head bobs in perfect sync with your rhythm. Han Dynasty fishermen used trained otters to herd fish, a practice whales never adopted. Those 76 tabloids swore Cardigan Bay had killer mink brigades. The net hisses through sand. Your forearms burn like they're still fighting cross-currents. Midnight laps at the shore, a metronome without a face. Your stitches align with childhood memories of hauling lobster pots beside Grandad. Historians still argue whether Viking oarsmen rode to poetry or just belched sea shanties. Doesn't matter, your body knows the tempo better than your tongue. Each repaired mesh square clicks, an invisible oarlock knuckle joints, popping in rebellious harmony. Something glints in the shallows, a broken thole pin crusted with barnacles. You pocket it instinctively, same reflex that saved 3 wedding rings from Davy Jones' locker. 18th century sailors swore thole pins stolen from rival ships brought smooth seas. Grandad called it bullshit. Yet he'd nail stolen ones above doorframes, just in case. The net drags heavier now channels, transforming into something between tool and tide. Your shoulders hunch, the dip and lift posture of oarsmen, immortalized on Greek urns. A muscle twitches where the starboard oar used to bruise your ribs. Funny how absence carves deeper grooves than presence ever managed. Breeze shifts, carries the fecund stink of lugworms from Swansea Bay. 10 generations back, your ancestors rode smuggling gigs under false-bottomed herring barrels. Someone, maybe you, starts humming our hid why knows. The net shudders its rhythm sinking with the lullaby's ancient sway, dawns a smudge on the horizon pale as a barnacle's belly. You stretch, vertebrae cracking like wet rigging. The repaired net lies coiled, a sleeping serpent, digesting silver secrets. Your arms hang loose, still feeling the ghost oars dragging silt and memory. Tide retreats, taking its metronome. Only the gulls remain, squabbling over baitfish futures. You wipe brine from your eyelids, saltwater or exhaustion tears. Who cares? The cormorant watches from its rock, neck crooked like a question mark. You nod, both hunters waiting for the sea's next move. Waves murmur through the net's fresh weave, a sound older than rowlocks, older than regrets. Your feet sink deeper, sand claiming its tithe. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a trireme's shadow dips its oars in salute or mockery. You're too tired to decide. Sleep tugs, gentle as a sculling stroke. The net's your oar now, carving through moonlit hours towards shores unseen. Let historians bicker over technique. You've mastered the only truth that matters. Motion begets motion. Even in stillness, wind plucks at the mended gaps, a faint melody. Your hands relax, finally, into the shape of oars, long surrendered to the seabed. Thick ridges cross your palms, raised constellations, only the sea could chart. Your thumb's roughest patch aligns with Orion's sword, a blistered belt earned hauling nets through the 98 red tide. Ancient Egyptian sailors famously mapped trade routes by callous patterns, their left hands encoded with Nile Delta shortcuts. You flex fingers, wondering if your own cracks hide forgotten coves. A herring gull screeches. Its cry pricks the salt-crusted air. You flick barnacle, grit from a weeping blister. 16 hours since the last bandage change. Victorian palmistry manuals claimed calluses, revealed past lives. That ridge near your pinky. Proof you drowned as a Breton oyster diver in 1723. Historians still argue whether medieval fishermen ritually burned calluses to appease storm gods. Your lighter flicks, flame-kissing skin, but you pocket it fast. Some traditions deserve forgetting. Moonlight etches your hand's topography into the sand, a temporary relief map. That crescent scar below your index finger mended a torn net during the 09 nor'easter. The pain lingers sour as yesterday's catch. You press it against damp wool, letting cold seep into muscle memory. Offshore, a trawler's running lights mimic distant stars. Phoenician traders treasured sailors with star hands, believed their toughened skin could silence sirens. Your knuckles creak, a poor man's GPS. The tide licks your boots patient as a pickpocket. Dawn bleeds through cloud banks, pink as a gutted salmon. You trace callous whorls, each ridge a ledger entry. 783 mended nets. 5 escaped storms. 1 lingering burn from that thermos of cursed bara bris. Experts think Roman fish saltery vats near Anglesey caused the first callus mutation epidemic. You've seen weirder things, like that winter flounder who blinked Morse code. Wind riffles through the net's newly patched grid, your handiwork fluttering like prayer flags. A bluetit lands on the drying line, its tiny claws denting twine. You hold still, let it mistake your calloused palm for driftwood. The bird cocks its head, black eyes mapping your labor's braille. Rain starts needle-fine drops pockmarking sand. You cup rainwater in creased hands, watch it pool in the deepest groove. 18th century quack doctors sold merciless tonics, seawater blended with grated sailcloth. Tasted like betrayal, according to your great-aunt's diary. The bird flies, your hands resume their stitch sway. Shadows lengthen, tides, metallic tang sharpens. That unhealed split near your lifeline. Same spot Grandad nicked skinning conger eels in 67. His hands looked like relief maps of the Cambrian mountains, all crags and decades-deep gullies. You flex sore fingers, echoes of his grip, haunting the tendons. Twilight brings the cormorant back, perched on the same black rock. It studies your hands like disputed territory. You stretch fingers wide, silent challenge. The bird yawns, fish breath fogging the air. Draw, then. Night's ink spills across the bay, your calluses glow faintly in the dark. Bioluminescent bacteria. Sleep deprivation. Either way, they pulse, Morse coding secrets to the bloated moon. A wave collapses, its foam hisses against your boots. You press palms to wet sand, stamp a temporary constellation into the shoreline. Wind shifts, carries the diesel stink of a late ferry. Your hands cramp, betrayed by their own mythology. That myth about Celtic warriors dipping hands in molten pitch for better grip. Total fabrication, probably. You massage the web between thumb and forefinger, feeling tomorrow's storm in the ache. First stars pierce the haze. Polaris aligns with your middle knuckle. The net lies finished for now, its fibers sighing as they dry. You cradle a rusted fishhook, its barb snags on the callus beneath your ring finger. Blood beads, salt tread mingling with seawater. Tide advances, erasing your sand-drawn cosmos. No matter. Tomorrow's labor will carve new ones, fresh peaks and valleys. In this range of relentless skin, the cormorant dives, its wake rippling through your fading handprint. You clasp both palms, a prayer without words, and let the sea rewrite the maps anew. The heron freezes mid-step, one stilt leg hovering above tidal foam. Its gaze locks onto your darting needle, two hunters gauging each other's patience. Medieval falconers once trained herons to catch fish for royal kitchens. A practice abandoned after too many eye-gouging incidents. You ease the twine sideways, mimicking the bird's neck sway. It blinks unimpressed. Moonlight shears the bay into mercury and ink. Your needle prickles something buried in the net, a mummified goby from last spring's catch. The heron tilts its head, eyeing the fish corpse like a sommelier judging corked wine. Historians still argue whether Welsh fishing clans used heron feathers to to predict storm patterns. You pluck a downy plume stuck in the net, tuck it behind your ear. The bird squawks, copyright infringement, apparently. Cold numbs your fingertips. You blow warmth into cupped hands. The heron mirrors you its beak parts in a steamless sigh. Breton sailors believed herons carried drowned souls to port towns, hence their knack for appearing at low tide. Your blistered palm grazes a rusted fishhook. Blood wells where the heron's shadow touches skin. Twine snags. You bite through a knot with molars ground flat from decades of tension. The heron stabs the shallows, emerges with a pinwheeling sand eel. Its gulping swallow mirrors your own Adam's apple dip. Someone in Swansea swears they've seen herons using crab shells as spoons. You're halfway to believing it. Dawn leaks across the horizon. The bird's feathers shift from slate to tarnished silver. It retreats as sunlight reclaims the beach, leaving 3 symmetrical footprints in the mud. You stretch aching shoulders, realize you've been holding your breath since the first star faded. Salt crusts your eyelids. Each blink scrapes like sandpaper. The repaired net droops between posts, sagging with the weight of salt water and truce. You pocket the heron's feather, its veins brushing your calluses like a stranger's whispered secret. Offshore, a dark shape circles slowly, wings spanning 7 feet of unyielding grace. The tide advances, erasing all proof of your silent collaboration. The waves reach your bootlaces, cold seeps through cracked leather. Salt crystallizes in the creases. Each step crackles like walking on stars. In 1284, Welsh rebels used these coves to smuggle arrows during Edward I's campaigns. Iron points wrapped in salted herring skins to deter rust. Your net sags where tide meets twine, 3 meshes already swallowed by the surge. You kneel, palm pressing the submerged fibers. The sea's pull whispers through your wrist bones, an old invitation. Offshore, something breaches, porpoise, or ship timber. It's gone before you decide. Tudor sailors believed vinegar-soaked nets scared off marrow spirits, though your grandmother swore a good cussing worked better. The current tugs harder, strands slip through your grip like eels. A knot unravels itself. You watch instead of stopping it. Surrender as triumph, a concept your great uncle embodied when he abandoned his trawler to open a bakery. Historians still argue whether the village of Lanunda drowned itself or simply forgot to build sea walls. Water numbs your ankles. The cold burns upward in slow tongues. Your needle hesitates mid-stitch. A barnacle-encrusted shard glints where net meets surf. It could be Roman glass. Trade ships spilled cargo here for centuries, or last summer's broken ale bottle. Either way, it winks at you, a third conspirator in this liquid conspiracy. You prick your thumb, blood beads black in the moonlight. The tide licks it clean, no different than seawater salting yesterday's wounds. A wave slaps your knees. You stagger, but hold ground. A jazz riff escapes your lips, improvised syncopation against the ocean's monotonous dirge. Your needle dances now, not mending, but embellishing. Loose threads become tassels, defiant flourishes where order once ruled. The heron's feather trembles in your pocket, reminding you to breathe between surges. 18th century hydrologists mapped these tides using sheep's bladder floats, their charts more art than science. You're half tempted to carve today's high water mark into the nearest dune. But the sea hates permanent things. You've learned that much. Moonlight fractures on the swirling surface, a disco ball for ghostly minnows. Your grandmother's voice surfaces, unbidden telling of nets that mended themselves during full moons. You never believed her until now. A gap seals shut as seaweed braids through the weave. The ocean's doing the work you resisted, untrained fingers weaving kelp into the lattice. It's humbling, annoying, maybe a bit erotic if you're honest with the darkness. Dawn's first smudge appears, the heron returns to its mud-flat throne. You retreat up the shingle slope, boots squelching with every backward step. The net billows underwater, half your knots dissolved, half transformed by salt's alchemy. Let historians dissect which parts were surrender and which were evolution. Your thermos waits in the dunes, tea gone cold, but the bitterness feels earned. As waves claim another yard of beach, you salute them with a chipped enamel cup. The sea takes, but never asks for permission. Smartest thief you've ever known, the eastern sky pales like oversteeped tea. Your repaired net sags between weathered posts, dripping constellations. Between 1793 and 1815, Welsh herring girls could mend 30-foot nets in 2 hours, their calluses outliving empires. Yours took all night. A lesser humbling. Sand grinds between your toes as you retreat. High tide already claiming yesterday's footprints. That's the problem with coastal labor. Every masterpiece gets erased before breakfast. You pass a tide pool swirling with microstars, bioluminescent plankton stranded by the ebb. 19th century sailors called them mermaid eyes. You crouch, fingertips breaking the surface tension. The glow clings to your skin, a temporary tattoo. For 3 heartbeats, you consider licking it off, a bad idea, perpetuated by every coastal weirdo since time began. Your dry chuckle startles a nearby oyster catcher, its shrill protest echoing off abandoned fishing sheds. The village path greets you with broken mussel shells, iridescent shards crunching under heel. Historians still argue whether starfish cottages' crumbled walls hid smuggled rum, or St. Britchan's 9th illegitimate child. You favor the bastard theory. Holiness never survives first contact with brine. A fridge magnet falls from your pocket, its faded world's okayest netmender slogan, chipped by salt air. You leave it lodged between barnacles. Let the tourists puzzle over that relic. Wind riffles through the hung net behind you, its hemp sighing like a spent lover. 18th century widows used to soak their wedding rings in these waters, believing the sea could dissolve grief's weight. Your bare finger feels lighter without the thermos's chill. Passing a driftwood cross, you nod equal parts respect and reflex. the ocean's atheist until the storm hits. Then everyone prays. Last night's bloodstain blends with rust on your jeans, a Rorschach test for nosy gulls. They peck at it anyway. Your stomach growls. A maritime Morse code, 3 dashes, 2 dots, probably demanding kippers. Instead, you suck air sharp with decaying kelp. Harmony Bay's lone food truck won't open for hours, its surly owner still nursing a grudge from the great condiment shortage of 19. Sunlight hits the harbor's dew-slick stones, their quartz veins glittering like smugglers' teeth. You trace the wharf's oldest scar, a 6-foot gash from an 1883 whiskey barrel avalanche. Legends say the liquor kept burning in fishermen's bellies for weeks. Modern hydrologists disagree. Science always crashing the best parties. A cormorant eyes you from its roost, feathers oil-slicked, stare judgmental. You toss it the last jelly bean from your pocket. It snubs the offering. Purple wasn't its color. Your shadow stretches westward, an elongated stranger mimicking every step. Dawn's full betrayal reveals splits in your sweater's seams. Salt stiffens the fabric into origami creases. You shrug, fashion's irrelevant when your audience is crabs. The real crime. Sand infiltrated your socks again. You'll find granules in your bed tonight, crunchy souvenirs of this half-lived life. The dunes ahead ripple under rising thermals, their grasses bowing like penitent monks. You spot last month's attempt at a sandcastle, now just a slope with delusions of grandeur. Tide clocks don't care about human persistence. Neither do your knees. They creak in Morse code again. 2 dots, 1 dash. Translation, screw this hill. At the car park's edge, you glance back. The net hangs slack, silver with trapped spray, already submitting to wind's whims. You salute it with an empty coffee cup, then crush the vessel underfoot. Aluminum protests, a tinny death rattle. Recycling's tomorrow's problem. Keys jingle in your palm. Iron, ammonite, fossil versus cheap metal. One's 1,000,000 years old, the other's from a gas station. Both open your rust-speckled Suzuki. The engine sputters, its own salty punchline. As you reverse, the rear view frames the shrinking beach, your night's labor dissolving into glitter. Let archaeologists decode those salt-stiffened knots. Let poets romanticize the blisters. You've got a shower to conquer and a couch-shaped destiny. Sand spills from your cuffs as you accelerate, each grain a tiny hourglass fleeing the scene. The radio coughs static, no signal, just white noises healing buzz. Your thumb finds the volume knob, twists, until the void drowns out the herring girl's ghostly laughter. Asphalt warms beneath tires. The sea keeps its secrets. You keep the aux cord. The eastern sky pales like oversteeped tea. Your repaired net sags between weathered posts, dripping constellations. Between 1793 and 1815, Welsh herring girls mended 30-foot nets. In 2 hours, their calluses, outliving kings and queens. Yours took all night, a quiet lesson in smallness. Sand grinds between your toes as you retreat. High tide, already licking yesterday's footprints clean. Coastal work humbles best, every triumph erased before the kettle boils. A tide pool swirls with trapped stars, glowing plankton left by the ebb. Sailors once called them mermaid eyes. You crouch, fingertips piercing the water's skin. Light clings to you, a fleeting glow. For 3 heartbeats, you wonder taste-testing sea sparkle. Coastal souls have tried dumber things. Your laugh startles a bird, its cry echoing off empty sheds like a rusty bell. Broken shells crunch underfoot on the village path, iridescent debris from last night's feast. Experts argue whether Starfish Cottage hid smuggled rum or a saint's secret child. You side with scandal, saltwater scrubs away virtue. A fridge magnet slips from your pocket, world's okayest netmender worn smooth by storms. You wedge it between barnacles, let strangers wonder. Wind sighs through the hung net, hemp threads whispering old griefs. Widows once drowned wedding rings here, trusting the sea to swallow sorrow. Your bare finger feels lighter now. Passing a driftwood cross, you nod, habit more than faith. The ocean scoffs at prayers until it doesn't. Rust stains bloom on your jeans, a Rorschach blot for hungry gulls. They peck anyway. Your stomach grumbles 3 dashes, 2 dots, a demand for breakfast. You breathe instead, air thick with rotting kelp. The food trucks shut, its owner still bitter over the great ketchup crisis. Sunlight gilds the harbor stones, quartz veins gleaming like pirate gold. Your thumb traces the wharf's scar, a 6-foot wound from an 1883 whiskey flood. Some say fishermen burned with barrel fire for weeks. Scientists roll their eyes, mythologies, a party crasher. A cormorant judges you from its perch. You offer a purple jelly bean. It turns away, a gourmet critic. Your shadow stretches west, a stretched-out copycat. Dawn exposes frayed sweater, seams salt-stiffened fabric creasing like paper. You shrug. Crabs don't care about fashion. The true sin. Sands breached your socks again. Tonight's pillow will crunch, proof of life half-lived. Dune grass bows like monks in wind, your sad sandcastle, now a humble slope. Tide clocks ignore human grit. Your knees agree, creaking Morse code protests. 2 dots, 1 dash. Message received, this hill wins. At the car park's edge, you glance back. The net hangs loose, catching spray. Already bending to the breeze. You toast it with a crumpled coffee cup crushed under heel. Aluminum whimpers, a tinny goodbye. Let tomorrow sort the trash. Keys chime, an ancient ammonite versus gas station steel. Both unlock your rust-flecked Suzuki. The engine coughs, a raspy joke, as you reverse. The rear view holds the shrinking shore, your night's work fading into seafoam. Let scholars decode the knots. Let bards sing of sore thumbs. Your couch waits, a kingdom of cushions. Sand spills from your sleeves as you drive, each grain fleeing the crime scene. The radio hums static, white noises lullaby. You crank the volume, drowning phantom laughter in void. Tires kiss warm asphalt, the sea whispers, You don't listen. You're already home.